What's now downtown Seattle is native land stretching back for millennia. Europeans explored the Pacific Northwest hundreds of years ago, but it wasn't until the 1850s that a group of settlers known as the Denny Party arrived at Alki, not just to homestead and work as farmers, but to build a metropolis. A few months later, they chose the shores of deep-water Elliott Bay to begin building a new city that they would name in honor of the great native chief. Over the next century, Seattle would face cycles of boom and bust, establishing the city's first industry on the waterfront, with Henry Yesler's sawmill battling Tacoma and other cities to establish vital rail connections to the east, rebuilding from the ashes of the Great Seattle Fire of June 1889, cashing in on the Klondike Gold Rush of 1897, mobilizing local industry for 2 world wars, and wrestling with the ever-present challenges of growth, housing, and transportation, all the while building a unique 20th century American metropolis and laying the foundation for what would become one of the most dynamic downtowns in the United States. With the new viaduct cutting through the city and I-5 in the works, the forecast was easy to read. Pressure from the suburbs was on the horizon. A group of 30 business leaders formed the Central Association of Seattle and chose Joe Gandy as the first president. Gandy declared, "Downtown will take no back seat in Seattle's future growth." Gandy was then tapped to become president of Century 21 to create the Seattle World's Fair and put our city on the global stage in 1962. With an elevated profile, there was work to do. The association led the development of the Central Business District Plan, which, in part, envisioned downtown as a large-scale shopping mall. This framework was adopted in 1963 and incorporated into the city's comprehensive plan. Until 1961, the viaduct, incredibly, had no access to central downtown. The association led the drive to create ramps at Seneca and Columbia. Elements of that Central Business District Plan were folded into the forward-thrust bond measures of 1968, including $118 million for parks and recreation. But the rapid transit propositions failed, sending federal funding for a subway to Atlanta instead. But there were wins for downtown, and the association led the effort in 2 critical moves, ensuring the Kingdom would call downtown home.
It had been financed, money was in place, but there was no site for it. But our goal, of course, was to put it downtown where it would have a major impact. It would be able to help the hotel business, the downtown business, and transit and transportation. Obviously, that gave birth to the Kingdom, which ushered in all of the professional sports.
And the 0-1 pitch on the way to Edgar Martinez. Swung on the line, down the left field line for a base hit. Here comes Joy. Here is Junior to third base. They're going to wave him in. The throw to the plate will be late. The Mariners are going to play for the American League Championship.
Huge impact on this city and this community.
The association led the effort to site the Seattle Aquarium on the downtown waterfront.
There was a lot of competition there too. Dr. Dixie Lee Ray, before she became governor, was proposing the site be Golden Gardens. Its impact on downtown and the community has been absolutely huge.
In 1978, the Downtown Seattle Development Association debuted what would become a summer staple, the Out to Lunch concert series. Free midday music, live in the heart of the city. 1 year later, the association coordinated the city's first and only NBA championship victory parade. Look closely, that's DSA President John Gilmore behind the wheel, and Sonics coach Lenny Wilkins with the trophy in the back seat. A move was made in 1980 that would be equally celebrated for years to come, when DSA formed Seattle Housing Resources Group, with a mission to provide affordable apartments for low-income workers downtown. Seattle Housing Resources Group became what is now Bellwether Housing, which owns and operates more than 2,000 housing units with an additional 1,200 on the way.
This was a proactive approach to this is a problem. We acknowledge the problem. We're not going to be saying no to everything. We're actually going to jump in and help solve this problem.
DSA lobbied at the state and federal level in the 80s for a downtown transit tunnel, and construction began in 1987 with closure of Pine Street and limited access to stretches of 3rd Avenue for nearly 2 years. DSA led the marketing effort to keep downtown businesses strong.
And we ran a campaign that a lot of folks will remember as "There's no place like this place, any place."
In addition to a great tagline, DSA debuted in 1987 what would become a festive fixture in downtown. The holiday carousel whirled into action, and generations of families have made it an annual tradition ever since. In the early 90s, the world was changing, and downtown retail needed a serious boost.
All four corners at 6th and Pine were boarded up. Frederick and Nelson gone away, I-Magnets had gone away, etc., and they were all boarded up.
The development of Pacific Place was pivotal. Turning the tide hinged on Nordstrom moving its flagship store to the old Frederick and Nelson building. This would only happen if Pine Street was reopened to traffic between 4th Avenue and 5th Avenue. Voters gave the thumbs up in 1996.
We formed a partnership with a group of local investors and DSA and took that on together to run a campaign to open up Pine Street. And today, fortunately, it all worked.
I think that if we hadn't opened up Pine Street, we would have had a hard time redeveloping downtown. Clearly, I don't think Nordstrom's would have made the decision that they made if Pine Street was still closed. And I think when you see that movement, you would have seen, I think, a further deterioration of downtown rather than rebirth.
The 90s also saw the start of a lasting trend, downtown's residential boom, with populations of Belltown, Denny Triangle, and retail core neighborhoods all doubling during this decade. DSA's comprehensive plan laid the foundation.
I think the decision, particularly on housing, in that comprehensive plan discussion really signaled a new direction for DSA that was focused on a different concept of what makes a downtown work, on the kind of downtown we wanted for Seattle, and on the role of DSA.
And as the booming 90s came to a close, DSA was just getting warmed up. In 1999, DSA made a move that would dramatically enhance downtown, founding the Metropolitan Improvement District, or MID, bringing clean and safety teams to the core of the city.
DSA was troubled that the streets of downtown were not as clean and as safe, and that things were happening that weren't pedestrian friendly.
And it took a long time of examples from other cities, talking about what our vision for downtown was, till everyone decided collectively we need to work together to be competitive, to deliver the kind of experience that today's customer wants.
As downtown's employment numbers soared, more and more commuters needed to get to and through downtown. DSA joined forces with King County in 2005 to form the Urban Mobility Group, which became Commute Seattle, promoting mobility options for downtown workers.
The success is evident because only a quarter of the people who come to work every day in downtown now drive their cars, and the others choose to take other options.
Also in 2005, DSA created what would become a signature event for business and community leaders, the State of Downtown, providing an annual update on the health of the downtown economy. An economy fueled in part by South Lake Union's surge in residential and employment growth. DSA championed a rezone of the neighborhood that helped lay the foundation for dramatic transformation.
In 1989, a citywide initiative passed 2-1 that said we don't want any more growth in downtown. And so DSA led a conversation for about 20 years to say we need to have more growth and density in downtown in order to be competitive for the future.
In 2013, the MID made a big move, increasing the service area by 30%, with an expansion into Belltown and additional blocks of Pioneer Square. The clean and safety teams now covered 285 square blocks to keep downtown clean, safe, and inviting to residents and visitors alike. 2 years later, the DSA Mid Outreach Team was formed, using a relationship-based model to connect with homeless people on the streets of downtown. The team has led hundreds of people to case management, treatment, and housing. The conversation could start with a pair of socks and eventually lead to stability. 2015 saw a bold step for DSA, entering a 1-year pilot agreement to manage and activate Occidental Square and Westlake Park. New furniture, games, staffing, consistently positive activity transformed these spaces, and the successful pilot led to a 5-year agreement.
I really think that DSA doesn't get enough credit for the change that you saw in Westlake Park. Westlake has changed from what it was to where it is today. Now you see more people playing chess, playing basketball, interacting.
Having helped form the original Seattle housing levy in the 70s, it only made sense for DSA to support the 2016 levy, the largest in Seattle history. That same year, DSA, United Way of King County, the Millionaire Club charity, and the city launched the Jobs Connect program. The MID was the first anchor employer, providing job training for unsheltered homeless. To date, more than 50 people have been hired to full-time positions with the MID, and Jobs Connect now features nearly a dozen employers. DSA was a leader in the effort to pass ST3, with DSA members contributing heavily to the campaign. The plan will bring a second downtown transit tunnel and more than 60 miles of additional light rail. With massive growth and development in the forecast, DSA launched a 20-year transportation and public realm vision in 2017 in partnership with the city, county, and Sound Transit. Projects from this plan are scheduled to begin in 2019. Presenting a vibrant environment once people are downtown is central to the Pike Pine Renaissance Plan. In 2017, DSA's vision for a better street-level experience from the waterfront to Capitol Hill kicked off with Act 1, leveraging $40 million of investment to improve Pike and Pine Streets. This iconic Seattle corridor welcomed a new anchor, with the Market Front opening at Pike Place Market. New landmarks are popping up in downtown. Our pedestrian experience needs to keep pace. And we think 2018 will be remembered for the start of something really big for 3rd Avenue. 3rd Avenue is the hardest working transit street in the nation, and DSA has a few ideas to improve the gateway to downtown. This look at downtown Seattle history is brought to you with support from Sellen Construction.